Imagine you found a wallet full of thousands of dollars, enough to completely change your life, and nobody was watching. This is the story of Maya, a poor, homeless, pregnant girl who chose honesty over desperation. But what she received in return will leave you speechless. Stay tuned. Let's go into this amazing story. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to this channel, and give this story a thumbs up. Rain came down hard over Accra, turning the streets into rivers of dirty water. The neon lights of distant traffic bled into colors of red, yellow, and green across the wet road. Maya Osei, 19 years old, thin and soaked to her bones, pressed her back against a locked shop door along Makola Street. The metal shutter shook every time the wind blew in from the ocean, and the piece of cardboard she held over her head flapped uselessly as if it wanted to fly away and leave her alone too. On good nights, she could pretend the raindrops were stars. She could pretend the cold street beneath her was just a dark sky she happened to be walking across. But tonight, the sky had no light at all. Not a single star broke through the clouds. That felt right. Her life had been dark since the day her father was buried 3 months ago. She remembered that afternoon with painful detail. Her stepmother, Auntie Dora, stood beside the grave in a bright red dress, her eyes wet with fake tears until the final prayer. 1 hour later, those same eyes burned with hatred. "You should have gone with him, you witch." Auntie Dora's words cut like a knife. Within minutes, Maya was thrown out of her own home, holding only a plastic bag with one old dress, a worn Bible, and the dying dream of finishing school. What Auntie Dora did not know, what Maya had been hiding for 2 months, was that Maya was 4 months pregnant. The father of her baby, a young man from her school, had disappeared the moment she told him. She had nobody left, no family, no friend with space to spare, just the street, the rain, and the small life growing quietly inside her. From that day, she floated through the city like a ghost. Every morning was about survival. Was there enough coins for a small sachet of water? Would a bread seller give her something at the end of the day if she smiled kindly? Every night was about finding a dry corner before the dangerous men claimed every doorway. She was amazed at how fast a human life could be reduced to inches of pavement in the kindness of strangers. The pregnancy made everything harder. Her feet swelled early in the morning. Her back ached from sleeping on hard surfaces. Some days she could barely walk from the cramps. Yet somehow she kept going, because the baby inside her had done nothing wrong, and Maya refused to give up on something innocent.
Around noon one day, while resting under the rusted roof of a newspaper stand, Maya heard excited voices around her. A large international trade fair had opened at Independence Square. Big companies, food vendors, and temporary jobs. One stall needed 10 extra workers immediately. Another was paying daily for people to hand out flyers. If desperation had a taste, Maya thought, it tasted like possibility. Her stomach cramped from hunger. Her last meal had been 2 small pieces of bread the evening before. She set out on swollen feet, moving carefully through the busy streets of Accra. By the time she reached the square, the place was alive and loud. Colorful banners snapped in the breeze. Music pounded from every direction. The smell of grilled meat mixed with sweet pastries and car exhaust. For a moment, she forgot she was hungry. Accra's energy could fool anyone into feeling rich. But hope, she was learning, does not stay long when your belly is empty. The first stallholder, a big man selling mobile phones, barely let her finish speaking. "Look at your condition," he said, glancing at her rounded stomach. "I can't have a pregnant street girl working here. My customers will think badly of me." At a food truck, she offered to wash dishes. The cook shook his head and pointed at a sign. "Health permit required, no exceptions." And so it went. 12 stalls, 15, 18, every door closed before she could even step inside. When the fair's big lights turned on at dusk, painting the sky orange, Maya moved toward the exit, her heart quietly whispering, "Maybe tomorrow." She was walking between tall stacks of empty boxes near the back gate when her foot touched something soft but firm, a black leather wallet face down on the wet ground. She bent down slowly, one hand on her lower back. Years of street life had given her sharp eyes for anything useful. The wallet felt expensive and smooth between her fingers. She opened it. 3,000 clean $100 bills stared back at her, neat as freshly ironed sheets. The air left her body. For a moment, her mind could only show her pictures: a small, clean room with a real mattress, a door with her own lock, a cot for the baby, a life rebuilt from nothing. Her heart pounded so loud she almost missed the laminated ID card tucked behind the money. It slipped free and fell to the ground. She picked it up quickly. A man in his mid-40s looked back at her, serious but strong face, gray at his temples, eyes full of confidence that said he probably owned the building you were standing in. Mr. Richard Mensah, Chairman and CEO, Mensah Global Holdings. Below the name, a residential address in Airport Residential, Accra, glittered in gold letters, along with a private phone number. A storm of thoughts broke through her tired mind. $3,000. At the current exchange rate, that was enough to rent a small, clean room for 2 years, pay for proper prenatal care, buy baby things, maybe even start a little sewing business. Why shouldn't she? Everyone on these streets survived on scraps that rich people dropped without noticing. Hadn't life already stolen more from her than any missing wallet could steal from its owner? But a quieter thought rose up, one that carried the voice of her late mother. "My daughter, anything built on a stolen foundation will always be shaking." The words were so real, she could almost feel her mother's warm hand on her cheek. That touch, remembered, calmed her. But a good conscience alone would not feed her tonight, or take care of the baby growing inside her. She tucked the wallet under the worn cloth of her dress, pressing it against her ribs as though it might sink into her heart. Then she walked, head down, until the noise of the fair faded behind her and the real Accra took over. Broken roads, flickering streetlights, the smell of open drains. She found shelter beneath a concrete bridge near Ordokur, beside a construction site that had been abandoned for years. Old iron rods stuck out of the ground like thin fingers reaching for help. She sat there, knees folded, arms around her shins, one hand resting on her stomach. The rain returned, heavier this time, as if the clouds were arguing about what she should do. Water dripped through a crack above and ran down her hair. Every good reason to keep the money walked through her mind like a parade. You have a baby coming. Your stepmother will never hurt you again. You can buy safety. You can buy a future. But honesty sat beside her like a small candle in a dark room, refusing to go out. You are still your mother's child.
Maya could not choose which voice was louder, the one promising quick rescue or the one demanding she stay true. She dozed off, woke up shivering, dozed again, dreamed of rooms made of money and tiny baby shoes she could never afford, until a crack of thunder pulled her fully awake into the gray light of morning. Her decision came with dawn. She would return the wallet, even if her feet were sore, even if her back ached, even if she had no idea how to get there. The problem was simple and terrible. No bus fare, no phone, no one to help. 30 kilometers of city lay between her and the address on the card. Swollen feet, empty stomach, a baby in her belly. Maya stood up in the thin morning light and whispered to the sky, "Let my legs be enough." Then she stepped onto the flooded street, the wallet pressed against her chest like a promise written in leather and fear. The sky was still heavy with clouds,
but somewhere deep inside her, one small light refused to go out. The morning sun came up slowly, as if even the sky did not want to shine on another hard day. Accra was already awake, horns blowing, sellers shouting, trotros racing through wet roads. Maya stood at the edge of Kaneshi Market, her stomach hurting from emptiness, both arms wrapped tightly across her chest. Beneath her worn dress, the Trillionaire's wallet pressed against her skin. Heavy, not because of the cash inside. Maya could not choose which voice was louder, the one promising quick rescue or the one demanding she stay true. She dozed off, woke up shivering, dozed again, dreamed of rooms made of money and tiny baby shoes she could never afford, until a crack of thunder pulled her fully awake into the gray light of morning. Her decision came with dawn. She would return the wallet, even if her feet were sore, even if her back ached, even if she had no idea how to get there. The problem was simple and terrible. No bus fare, no phone, no one to help. 30 kilometers of city lay between her and the address on the card. Swollen feet, empty stomach, a baby in her belly. Maya stood up in the thin morning light and whispered to the sky, "Let my legs be enough." Then she stepped onto the flooded street, the wallet pressed against her chest like a promise written in leather and fear. The sky was still heavy with clouds, but somewhere deep inside her, one small light refused to go out. The morning sun came up slowly, as if even the sky did not want to shine on another hard day. Accra was already awake, horns blowing, sellers shouting, trotros racing through wet roads. Maya stood at the edge of Kaneshi Market, her stomach hurting from emptiness, both arms wrapped tightly across her chest. Beneath her worn dress, the Trillionaire's wallet pressed against her skin. Heavy, not because of the cash inside, but because of the battle it had started in her heart. The market buzzed like a giant beehive. Traders filled both sides of the road, selling fabric, cheap phones, cooking oil, and second-hand shoes. Somewhere a child cried. Somewhere else, 2 women argued about the price of tomatoes. Accra was loud and alive, but to Maya, it all sounded far away, like the noise of a world she no longer belonged to. She breathed slowly and told herself quietly, "You need transport." The address in Airport Residential was not somewhere she could walk to easily. It was across the city, across class lines, across a world she had only seen in magazines. But the bus fare was 4 cedis. Maya had exactly 1 cedi. She had no phone credit, no phone even, just this wallet that was not hers, this growing belly that was hers, and this test that life had placed in front of her. She began asking people for help. "Please, sir," she said to a man loading bags of rice onto a truck, "I need 4 cedis for transport. I found something and need to return it to the owner." The man stopped, wiped sweat from his forehead, and looked her up and down. "Found what?" She paused. "A wallet." His eyes narrowed. "With money?" "Yes, but I want to return it." The man laughed loudly and shook his head. "You're pregnant and starving, and God gave you a blessing? You want to spit in his face? Use it and help yourself and your baby." He picked up a bag and walked away. Maya's throat tightened. She moved to a woman selling ripe plantain. "Please, Ma, just 4 cedis. I want to return something valuable I found." The woman looked at her with suspicion. "Return to who?" "A man in Airport Residential." The woman blinked, then laughed. "My dear, you're pregnant and walking barefoot, and you want to return a rich man's money? You like suffering." A nearby woman joined in. "Let me see the wallet first." Maya stepped back. "No, I just need help getting there." "Then use your legs and go." The woman hissed and turned away.
For hours, she wandered the market, asking, explaining, hoping for just one kind heart, but all she got were mocking laughs, suspicious looks, and tired waves. By noon, she slumped beside a gutter, exhausted and angry. "What if they're right?" a voice said inside her. "What if this is your blessing? You have a baby coming. Why give this back to a man who already has everything?" She looked at the wallet again. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The money was still there, clean, waiting. She could rent a room in Nima, start over, eat 3 times a day, buy proper clothes for herself and for the baby. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Her slippers were almost falling apart. Her body ached from sleeping on cold concrete in the rain. Her back hurt from the pregnancy. "This is mercy," the voice said. "God has finally remembered you and your baby." But another voice, quieter, deeper, stronger, rose like a slow wave. "If you take what is not yours, how will your story ever be clean? What will you teach this child? Didn't Mama always say that? What does it gain a person to get comfort but lose her honor?"
Maya bowed her head. The wallet rested on her knees. She thought of her mother's hands that mended torn school uniforms for free, hands that held her close during bad storms, hands that only slapped her once for lying. Her mother had nothing, but she carried herself like a queen because she lived with truth. Tears stung Maya's eyes. "I am not a thief," she whispered. "Even when I am hungry, even when my baby needs things." She stood up slowly, holding her lower back. The decision was made. She would walk to Airport Residential. With sore feet and a rough map in her memory, she began. She had no Google Maps, no phone to check the way, only the memory of a school trip she took long before her father died. She passed through Kineshi, through Obetsubi Circle, walking along the edges of busy roads, asking for directions at every turn. Some people ignored her. Some shook their heads. One old taxi driver told her, "If you're walking to Airport Residential looking like that, you need the strength of angels." She smiled faintly and said, "Then may angels carry me." She walked like she was carrying something precious on her chest, and in a way she was. Not just money, but something even rarer, an unbroken conscience. As the sun went low and Accra turned gold and shadow, her legs wobbled, her skin itched from sweat and dust, and still she walked, one hand on her belly, one foot in front of the other. She slept that night under a tree near an abandoned shed, holding her bag like treasure. The mosquitoes came, the hunger came, but so did a strange peace, and that was enough to get her back on her feet when the sun returned. She kept walking, not from fear, but from a quiet certainty that doing the right thing mattered, even when the whole world said it was foolish. 2 voices had spoken. She had chosen the harder one. By the second evening of her walk, Maya's feet had swollen badly inside her slippers. Every step sent sharp pain up her legs. Her mouth was dry. Her back throbbed from the weight of the baby. Her skin had darkened under the sun and dust, but she kept moving. Strangers stared as she walked through Labone. Some looked curious, some looked disgusted. A few moved away as if she carried sickness. Finally, at noon on the 3rd day, after crossing roads full of big cars and security vans, Maya arrived in Airport Residential. She knew she was close because the world had changed around her. Gone were the noisy markets and crumbling walls. Here, glass buildings stood tall beside perfectly cut grass. Palm trees shook gently over guarded gates. The very air smelled expensive. People walked like they had important places to be. Their shoes clicked with confidence on clean pavements. Maya looked down at her own shoes, one slipper torn, her toe covered with dust. She pressed her hand to her stomach. "We made it," she whispered to her unborn child. She walked up to a security officer outside a nice coffee shop and showed him the ID card she had taken from the wallet. "Please," she said, her voice dry and cracked, "can you tell me where this address is?" The man looked at the card, then at her. His eyebrows went up. "This is Crescent Lane. That address is not far from here." He paused, looking at her condition, the worn dress, the pregnant belly, the tired eyes. "Who are you going to see?" She said quietly, "Mr. Richard Mensah." The man handed the card back. "Be careful around here. I don't like surprises." Maya thanked him and kept walking. Her legs were trembling. She was not just tired. She was scared. What if they didn't believe her? What if they called her a thief? What if she had walked all this way only to be arrested? Or worse, what if something happened to the baby from all this stress and hunger? She reached number 8 Crescent Lane and stopped in front of the biggest gate she had ever seen. Tall black iron bars with gold-colored letters in the center. Mensah. Security cameras sat on every corner like silent eyes. The walls were so high they looked like they touched the clouds. She stood there for a long time. Should she ring the bell? Would they even open for her? Her reflection in the polished gate made her flinch. Her face was dirty, her hair rough and matted. Her pregnant belly stuck out under a faded dress. She looked nothing like someone who should be standing at a trillionaire's gate.
Still, she lifted her trembling hand and pressed the intercom button. A voice crackled. "Yes?" She leaned in. "Please, I need to speak to Mr. Mensah. It's important." A pause. "And who are you?" "I found something that belongs to him. A wallet. I came to return it." Silence. Then, "Hold on." Minutes passed. Then the small side gate opened, and 2 security men in uniform stepped out. Their eyes swept over her, the dirty face, the torn shoes, the round belly. One of them almost laughed. "You say you have something for Oga?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, please. I just want to return his wallet." The second man interrupted with a short laugh. "You found a wallet full of money and walked all the way here to give it back? You must have a problem in your head." They both laughed. Maya did not laugh. She reached under her dress and carefully pulled out the wallet. "This belongs to him, sir. I only want to give it back. Please, just let him know I'm here." The guard stared at her. "If you don't put that down and walk away, we are calling the police." She said nothing. The gate slammed shut. She stood still, her whole body shaking. Her stomach growled. She had not eaten in more than a day. Her legs felt like they could give way at any second. But she would not move, not until she saw him. Even when the sky grew dark and the night breeze carried a cold chill, Maya stayed in front of that gate. She sat on the hard pavement, holding the wallet to her chest. People walked past. Some glanced, some whispered. She did not care. At some point, she fell asleep, her back against the wall, her head tilted to one side. Her hands rested gently on her belly. The moon watched quietly from above. The night was cruel. No food, no cover, just the sound of crickets and passing cars. She woke just before sunrise when a splash of water from a cleaning hose hit her foot. A street cleaner nearby muttered something unkind, but Maya was not leaving. As the first light of the sun began to stretch across the quiet streets of Airport Residential, the gate of number 8 Crescent finally began to open. A line of dark SUVs moved slowly out of the compound. Maya stood up. Her whole body hurt, but her spirit did not. She stepped forward and stood directly in front of the first car. Tires screeched, horns blew, security men rushed out shouting, "Get away from the road! Are you crazy? Move!" But she did not move. The car door opened and the man himself stepped out. Sharp gray suit, glasses on his nose, hair neatly combed. It was him, the same face on the ID card, the same confident eyes, the same man. Maya's heart jumped. "Who are you?" Mr. Mensah asked, his voice calm but firm. She opened her mouth, but for a second no words came. She could only stare at this man whose wallet she had carried across Accra like a fragile treasure. Then she held it out with both hands, her voice barely a whisper. "This belongs to you, sir." Mr. Richard Mensah stood completely still, his eyes fixed on the thin, dust-covered pregnant girl who had just stepped in front of his convoy. The morning sun was just beginning to warm the streets of Airport Residential, but the heat in the air was nothing compared to the silence that now wrapped around number 8 Crescent Lane. Maya stood with shaking legs, the wallet held forward like an offering. Her arms ached, her feet throbbed. She had walked for 3 days through the punishing heat of Accra, hungry, insulted, rejected, just to reach this moment. And now she faced the man whose name and face had been burned into her memory since the moment she picked up that wallet. Mr. Mensah did not take the wallet immediately. He simply looked at her. Not rudely, just carefully. His eyes moved across her face, her clothes, her sunburned skin, her trembling hands, and then settled on her round, pregnant belly. Something shifted in his expression. One of the bodyguards leaned toward him. "Sir, should we—" Mensah raised one hand. "No." He stepped forward slowly, took the wallet from her hands, and looked at it as if seeing it for the first time in a long while. He opened it. All 30 bills were there. His ID was untouched. Even the hidden emergency card folded behind the last pocket was still in place. He raised his eyes back to her. "You found this?" She nodded. "Yes, at the trade fair, 3 days ago. I didn't know how to get to you at first. I walked all the way here." "You walked?" "Yes, sir." Her voice broke slightly. "Nobody would help me with bus fare, but I had to return it. It wasn't mine." He was quiet. The driver in the lead SUV gave a light honk, confused. The rest of the convoy sat still. The engines hummed, waiting. Mr. Mensah turned to a security captain. "Call off the trip." "But sir, you have a meeting in cantonments." "Cancel it," Mensah said firmly. "Something more important just came to my gate." He turned to Maya. "Come inside." Her eyes went wide. "Sir? You've earned a bath, a seat, a warm meal, and rest before anything else, especially in your condition." She almost fell forward from relief. The gates opened slowly, like the beginning of something new, and Maya followed Mr. Mensah's footsteps into a world she had never imagined entering. The compound felt like a private park, grass trimmed perfectly, rose bushes shaped into neat balls, and a large fountain in the center that sparkled in the morning sun. The main house stood ahead like something from a dream. Marble columns, glass walls, a long, clean driveway of smooth bricks that felt right to walk on them with dusty feet. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of flowers and something expensive. Maya barely noticed the luxury. She was too focused on staying upright. A house helper stepped forward from behind the staircase, took one look at Maya, and blinked. Mr. Mensah spoke without turning. "Take her to the guest room, draw her a warm bath, bring her food, something solid and nutritious. She's been walking for 3 days, and she is pregnant." The helper hesitated. "Sir, she is very dirty." "I know," Mensah said quietly. "That's why I said bath." He looked at Maya. "Go with her. We'll talk when you're rested." Maya followed the helper up wide marble stairs, her legs numb, her mind spinning. For a moment she thought, what if this is all a dream? What if her body had collapsed outside the gate, and this was just her mind, starved and desperate, creating a beautiful lie? But then the warmth of the bath water made her gasp. It was real. For the first time in months, she touched soap that lathered properly. The grime of 3 days, and much longer, slowly washed away. Her skin returned to its real color. The helper, whose name was Grace, brought her clean clothes, soft cotton that felt like a gentle hug. She also brought a small bottle of lotion and, quietly, a box of prenatal vitamins. "Madam left these," Grace said softly, without explaining who Madam was. Maya pressed the vitamins to her chest and closed her eyes. Then came the food: hot jollof rice, 2 pieces of grilled tilapia, a tall glass of cold Malta. Maya did not cry. She simply stared at it for a moment, stunned, before whispering the prayer her mother once taught her. "Thank you, Lord, for daily bread, and for the hearts kind enough to share it." When she finished eating, she was guided to a sitting room with soft chairs and large windows looking out over a garden, and beyond it, the distant shimmer of the Volta River. Mr. Mensah was already seated, a glass of water in his hand. He studied her again, not with suspicion, but with the deep curiosity of a man trying to understand something rare. "What is your name?" he asked. "Maya Osei." "Where are your parents?" "My father died 3 months ago. My mother died when I was 11. "You've been living on the streets since your father passed?" She nodded. "His wife said I was a witch. She threw me out. I had nowhere to go." Mensah's jaw tightened slightly, but his tone stayed calm. "And the baby?" Maya looked down. "The father left when I told him. I've been alone since." She looked up slowly. "I was going to keep it a secret at the fair, the pregnancy, because people already don't want to hire me when they see me. But now—" She stopped. Mensah was quiet. Then he said, "And yet with all that pain, all that hardship, all those reasons to keep that wallet, you still brought it back." She looked at her hands. "I almost didn't. One voice told me to keep it, but another voice, my mother's voice, she always said, 'We may be poor, but we are not thieves.' And I thought about what kind of world I wanted to bring this child into." The room was quiet for a long time. Then Mensah said something she did not expect. "I believe you." Maya's head came up fast. "You do?" "Yes, and I admire you, Maya." She blinked, confused. "But I'm nobody, sir." He smiled faintly. "That may be what the world says, but some nobodies carry more light than all the somebodies put together." He rose. "You should rest today. Tomorrow I'll tell you what happens next." That night, Maya slept in a real bed, wrapped in soft sheets, under a roof that did not leak. She didn't know what the morning would bring, but she knew this: for the first time in years, she felt like a person again. And somewhere deep inside her, and inside the baby growing quietly beneath her hands, something small and fragile began to bloom: hope. Sunlight came through the tall arched windows of the guest room, warming the cream duvet where Maya lay. For a moment she could not move, not from pain, but because she was afraid to wake up and discover it was all a dream. She had slept the whole night through. No shouting trotro drivers, no mosquitoes, no smell of gutters, just silence, clean sheets, and cool air. Her body still ached from the journey, her feet still swollen, her shoulders still sore, but her spirit felt lighter than it had in years. She got up slowly and walked barefoot to the mirror. The girl looking back at her was not the same one that had slept on pavements and begged for coins. Her skin was clean. Her hair had been carefully braided into neat cornrows by Grace the night before. The soft sky-blue dress she now wore fit her gently around her belly. For the first time in her life, she looked dignified. She placed both hands on her rounded stomach and said softly, "We made it through the night, little one." A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Grace, carrying a breakfast tray. Hot porridge, sliced mangoes, fresh orange juice, and a glass of milk. "For the baby, too," Grace said with a warm smile. "Oga says when you've eaten, he'll see you in the study." The study was a room full of history. Dark wooden bookshelves lined the walls, filled with business books, framed awards, and old photographs. A large oil painting of an older woman, serious, elegant, powerful, hung behind the main desk. Maya stopped and looked at her. "That was my mother," Mensah said from behind. "She taught me everything I know about people." Maya turned and greeted him politely. He pointed to a chair. She sat, her heart beating steadily now. He folded his hands on the desk.
I want to thank you again, Maya. What you did, returning that wallet, was not just unusual, it was rare. I only did what felt right, sir. Even when every reason in the world said not to? She nodded. Even then. He leaned back. Would you tell me your whole story? I'd like to hear it from the beginning. Maya hesitated. Then she told him everything. How her mother died when she was young. How her father remarried a woman who never truly accepted her. How she loved school and dreamed of becoming a nurse someday. How everything ended the moment her father was lowered into the ground. She burned my school books, she said quietly. She said I was the reason for everything bad in the family. She pushed me out with just a bag of clothes. And then you found out you were pregnant? She nodded. 2 weeks after I was already on the street. The father left when I told him. I was alone with nothing, and I had a baby coming. Her voice was steady, not begging, just honest. When I found your wallet, for a moment I thought God had finally remembered me, that maybe the money was meant to save me and my child. But I remembered what my mother said. She paused. No matter how hard the world pushes you, never take another person's peace. That money was not mine, and I wanted to sleep at night without a heavy heart. A long silence followed. Mensa looked at her the way you look at something rare, like you were seeing not the outside of a thing, but its core. He stood and walked to the window. Many people wear masks their whole lives, Maya. They smile while they plan to hurt you. They give so they can control. But you, he turned, voice soft. You gave back something valuable when the world had given you nothing. She blinked away tears. I didn't expect a reward. I just wanted to do what was right. He nodded slowly. That is exactly why you deserve one. She looked up, startled. Sir, I'm not asking. I know, he said. I'm not offering charity. I see something in you. Strength, integrity, courage that most people twice your age don't have. I don't know everything your future holds, but I know it should not be street corners and cold nights. That ends now. He reached for a folder on his desk. I'm arranging for you to enter a skills training and business education program, mentorship, a stable place to live, and eventually a real position in one of my companies. Maya's mouth opened. But I don't even have qualifications. You have the one thing money cannot buy, a clean conscience. He paused, his eyes going distant for a moment. The world doesn't reward people like you enough, but I will. Maya's voice cracked. Why are you being this kind to me? He smiled gently. Perhaps kindness is the only thing worth being rich for. He also made one more quiet announcement. Through his company's welfare foundation, a full healthcare plan would be set up for Maya, covering everything she needed for the rest of her pregnancy and the delivery of her baby. She broke down then, not in sadness, but in pure relief. She had been terrified, secretly, every single day about what would happen when it was time for the baby to arrive. That fear, carried alone for months, dissolved in an instant. That evening, Maya stood on the balcony of the guest suite, looking out at the city lights of Accra reflecting on the water below. She felt both overwhelmed and peaceful at the same time. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, she no longer felt forgotten. And deep inside her, a quiet question began to form. Who exactly was this Mr. Mensa, and why did he care so much about one lost wallet? She did not know it yet, but the real answer was coming, and it would change everything. The next morning, Maya stood on the large balcony watching the sky turn gold over Accra. The city stretched wide and bright below, and for the first time it did not feel like it was pressing down on her. It felt like it was opening up. She turned when she heard his voice. "Maya?" It was Mr. Mensah, in a white shirt and dark trousers, a cup of tea in his hand. His face was softer this morning, almost like a father's. "Good morning, sir." "Come," he said gently. "Let's have breakfast on the terrace. I asked the chef to prepare something good for you and the baby." They sat at a glass table under a shaded trellis. Fresh papaw, warm yam and egg stew, toasted bread, a jug of hibiscus juice. Maya ate in quiet, unsure how to act around a trillionaire. But Mensah seemed in no rush, sipping his tea calmly. Then he said simply, "You are probably wondering why I'm doing all this." Maya looked up slowly. "Yes, sir, I have been wondering." He put the cup down. "Good. You deserve to know." He leaned back. 2 years ago, I lost my mother. Her name was Mama Efua. She was the wisest, strongest woman I have ever known. She used to say, "You cannot measure a person's value by the size of their account, only by the size of their character." Maya listened closely. "She died suddenly. Heart attack." His voice was quiet. "I was broken for weeks. For the first time in a long time, I stopped and thought, not about my business, but about the world I was living in, about the people around me, about what was real." He stood slowly and walked toward the edge of the balcony. "Her death pushed me to try something unusual. I took an old wallet, filled it with $3,000, put my ID card inside, and left it in a public place." Maya's eyes widened. "You dropped it on purpose?" He nodded. "I wanted to see if anyone would return it, not because they had to, because they wanted to, because it was right." She leaned forward. "And did anyone?" He turned and looked directly at her. "Not a single person. For 26 months I left a wallet in a busy place, shopping centers, bus stops, market grounds, airports. Each time I included my phone number and my address. I waited." "But they never came," he continued. "Not one person returned it." Maya's heart was pounding. "I wasn't angry," he said, "just sad. I started to think that maybe Mama Efua was wrong, that the world had changed, that honest people no longer existed where no one was watching." He walked back to the table and sat across from her. "Until you." Silence fell between them like a held breath. "You, Maya," he continued, "are the first person in over 2 years to bring that wallet back. You who had every reason to keep it. You who had nothing, who was pregnant and alone and hungry, and you still chose to do the right thing." Maya's eyes were wide, her lips parted. "You were testing people?" "I was searching for someone who still had truth in their soul. You passed a test you never even knew was there. That is why I canceled my meeting. That is why I brought you inside." She looked down, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." "You've already said everything through your actions." He reached into a drawer and placed a white envelope on the table in front of her. Maya stared at it. "What is this?" "A cashier's check. $100,000. She gasped. "Sir, no, I can't." "You can," he said gently but firmly, "and you will. This is not charity. This is a reward, a seed for the future you and your child deserve."
Tears rolled down Maya's cheeks. "I don't know anything about managing money. That is why I'm not leaving you alone to figure it out," he said steadily. "You'll have mentors, a proper home, and a real job, not as a servant, but as a junior manager in our community development division in Kumasi. We will train you and guide you, but your honesty, your heart, that is something even the wealthiest people in this room cannot afford." Maya buried her face in her hands and wept softly, not from sadness, but from disbelief, relief, and a gratitude too large for words. "You are the kind of person my mother believed still existed in this world," Mensa said gently. "You reminded me that character still lives in places the world forgets to look." He stood and walked toward the window again. "Everyone who left that wallet and walked away failed the test of conscience. But you didn't just pass, you gave me back my faith in people." Maya rose to her feet, her voice unsteady. "Thank you, sir. I don't feel like I deserve all this, but I will make you proud, I promise." He turned and smiled. "I know you will, Maya. I never doubted it." That night, as she lay in that bed, no longer a stranger passing through, but a person with a real future, Maya whispered a prayer to her mother. "Mama, I didn't take what wasn't mine, and somehow, by holding on to that, I found everything I was searching for." She closed her eyes, one hand resting peacefully on her belly, and for the first time in her life, the stars shone just for her. The envelope on the bedside table glowed quietly in the moonlight. Its simple weight carried a power Maya had never imagined. She lay still, listening to her own breathing, steady now, unhurried, and to the soft flutter of movement inside her, the baby turning as if it too could feel that something had changed. The following week moved like a gentle dream. A tailor came and measured her for 2 smart work dresses that could grow with her changing body. A counselor from a women's support center met with her to help process the months of trauma she had been carrying alone. A nurse visited daily to monitor the pregnancy. Everything was fine. The baby was healthy, strong, the doctor said with a smile, like its mother. She spent mornings with a private tutor going over business communication and basic finance. Afternoons, she shadowed Mensa's operations manager, watching how decisions were made, how teams were led, how problems were solved with calm and purpose. On Thursday of her second week, the Mensa Global Holdings leadership team gathered for its monthly review. Senior staff filed into the glass-walled boardroom, some curious, some politely skeptical, as Mensa entered, with Maya walking beside him. "Everyone," he announced, "meet Miss Maya Osi, incoming junior manager for our community housing initiative in Kumasi. She will lead the first phase of our affordable homes project." A quiet murmur went around the long table. One senior director, a gray-haired woman in a sharp blazer, cleared her throat. "With respect, sir, is this not a little sudden?" Mensa's reply was mild but sure. "Sudden honesty is still honesty. She has my full support." Maya lifted her chin. She thought of the finishing lessons Grace had given her quietly in the evenings. Shoulders back, voice steady, speak like you belong here because you do. She spoke clearly. "Affordable housing is not a favor, it is a foundation. A city cannot grow strong on streets that eat its people alive." The room went quiet, not because every person agreed, but because every ear had leaned in. 6 weeks after her arrival at the gate of number 8 Crescent Lane, Maya unlocked the door of a 2-bedroom flat in Kumasi. Furnished, clean, 5 minutes from the Mensa Global Kumasi office. The smell of fresh paint and new wood greeted her. The windows looked out over green hills. The refrigerator hummed softly, full of food she hadn't bought herself. She laughed, a real surprised laugh, and then, without warning, burst into tears.
Gratitude, she was learning, can feel just as heavy as grief. She sat on the clean floor and let the feeling wash through her until it became calm. Only then did she notice a small wrapped parcel on the kitchen counter. Brown paper tied with string. Inside was a soft yellow baby blanket, handmade with tiny embroidered flowers along the border, and a note in Mensa's steady handwriting. For the one who is coming, may this child always know it was born to a woman of honor. Maya traced the words slowly. She pressed the blanket to her chest. In that simple gift, she understood something new. Wealth could change circumstances, but it was character that changed lives. 2 months later, Maya stood before a row of freshly painted homes on the edge of Kumasi. 16 families stood in a line, each holding a set of keys. Children ran laughing through the clean, open corridors. A local journalist raised her camera. A government official shook Maya's hand in front of the crowd. The project, which Maya had named Morning Light Homes in memory of her mother, had come in on time and under budget. The Minister of Housing gave a short speech about private partnerships, but the crowd was waiting for the young manager whose story had quietly spread across the country. Maya stepped to the small podium. The afternoon sun was warm on her face. She was 7 months pregnant now, her belly round and full, and she stood at the front of those 16 homes with the same straight back that she had learned not in a finishing school, but on the road from Kaneshi Market to Airport Residential, when she had nothing left but her conscience. She did not read from notes. I once slept under a bridge in Accra, with nothing. Gasps rose from the crowd. I was pregnant, homeless, and hungry, and someone gave me a chance. Today, we are passing that chance forward. Every family standing here deserves a safe place to raise their children. That is not charity, that is justice. She raised the ceremonial scissors and cut the ribbon. The doors behind her swung open. Children whooped and ran inside, their voices rising like music. Their laughter filled the new corridors and bounced off the clean walls. Maya found Mensa's face in the front row. He nodded once, a quiet, deep nod that said everything a loud speech could not. Test passed, purpose found. That evening, Mensa hosted a small rooftop gathering to mark the project's success. Warm lights glittered overhead. A musician played soft, high-life tunes in the corner. As the guests mingled and toasted, Mensa walked quietly to where Maya stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking out over the Kumasi skyline. "I have something for you," he said, and produced a small leather case, the same quality as the wallet she had returned months ago. Her stomach fluttered. "Another test?" "No," he said, opening it. Inside lay a single brass key on a small velvet cushion. "Board approval came in today. You are now Director of Community Impact, Western Region. This key opens every one of our field offices." He paused, smiling. "Use it well." She closed the case gently and held it to her chest. "I'll try." He shook his head softly. "Your trying already changed my life, Maya. And my mother, wherever she is at rest." Later, long after the last guest had gone home, Maya stood alone by the rooftop rail. The sky above Kumasi was wide and clear, full of stars. She thought of the night the rain beat her under a corrugated roof in Accra. She remembered the two voices, the one that said, "Keep it," and the one that said, "Don't." Had she listened to the first, she might have slept on a warm mattress bought with another man's loss. But she would never have known this deeper comfort, a life with nothing to hide. She opened the leather case again, letting the brass key catch the starlight. In its small gleam, she saw everything she wanted to build. Schools for market children, clinics for forgotten neighborhoods,
housing for pregnant women with no one to turn to, safe places for every girl the world had called worthless. She tucked the key into her pocket. She placed both hands on her belly. The baby moved, a strong, rolling kick. She laughed softly. "I know," she whispered. "You're ready. So am I." She tilted her face up to the sky. The breeze was warm and gentle, the stars were bright, and for the first time since childhood, she felt completely safe. Not because she had money now, or a title, or a home, but because she had never let go of the one thing that had always been hers, her truth. "Thank you, Mama," she said quietly. "Your daughter kept her hands clean, and look what clean hands built." 3 weeks later, in a clean private hospital room with soft lighting and warm blankets, Maya gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Efua, after Mr. Mensa's mother, the woman whose memory had started the whole search for honest hearts. Mensa visited the next morning with a simple bouquet of yellow flowers. He stood at the door, looking at the tiny girl in Maya's arms, and said nothing for a long moment. Then he smiled and said, "She looks like someone who will also do the right thing." Maya laughed, and it was the most free sound she had ever made. Moral of this story: integrity opens doors that money cannot. Maya's honesty, courage, and compassion show that character matters more than circumstance. True wealth means lifting others, forgiving freely, and doing what is right, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. Hope, guided by conscience, leads to rewards that last. Goodness, though the world may overlook it, is never invisible forever. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please share your thoughts and tell us what you learned in the comments section below. We would love to read them. And another powerful story is coming very soon, so please subscribe to this channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to watch when we upload. If this story moved you, hit the like button and share it with your family and friends. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.